to the other big story that we're tracking here, and that is the countdown to the Prime Minister's visit to the United States. It's his first official state visit. The Prime Minister is going to be on a whirlwind United States tour and then to Egypt, for which the Prime Minister is flying at about 7 a.m. tomorrow, is what we're learning. Massive preparations are underway in the United States. As the Prime Minister lands in the US, he gets down to business, from leading the International Yoga Day event at the UN headquarters to addressing US congressmen in a joint session of the Congress, to meeting with top CEOs in the United States to push India as the ultimate investment hub. And then, of course, the all-important bilateral with US President Joe Biden. Prime Minister has a packed and a busy schedule for the next 48 hours. There's a host of deals that will be signed when Prime Minister Modi meets United States President Joe Biden. So let me take you through what's on the Prime Minister's agenda. One of the key components which will be predominantly showcased during Prime Minister Modi's visit is going to be on defense cooperation between the two countries. The second key component has been that of strong trade and investment partnership, which is why we're going to be seeing one-on-one meetings with top corporate honchos there as well when the Prime Minister is there. Third is the technology component, the transfer of technology that we're speaking of, which interfaces with many other domains. There's telecom, there's space, there's manufacturing and investment. So all of that is going to be looked at by the Prime Minister during this schedule of his in the United States. Now, there are several reasons why this is an important visit of the Prime Minister. Like I said, it's his first official state visit in the 9 years that he has been the Prime Minister here in the country. One of the biggest reasons why this is significant is because it comes amid deteriorating ties between the US and China. So it's going to be extremely crucial, the strengthening of ties between India and the United States. Another reason why this is key is because the US is trying to counter China's dominance in this particular region, and India could use that to its advantage. India's potential as alternative supply chain for the United States is also something that India has been pushing for. It will be of key focus when the Prime Minister is in the United States as well. The expansion of the bilateral trade between the two countries, which is upwards of $190 billion. That is also something that we will want to strengthen and further increase. Another reason why this is an extremely important visit, not just for India and for the Indian Prime Minister, but also for United States and Joe Biden, because it's important to improve the commitment to the Indo-Pacific region as well. And another big reason which both countries and analysts in both those countries are also looking at, of course, is the mega defense deal to keep common enemies out, and the fact that both India and the United States go to elections next year. It's general elections here in India and, of course, the presidential elections in 2024 for the United States as well. So there's a lot at stake. There's a lot on the table. Let's decode the significance and where we move forward from here. Edward P. Joseph, Senior Fellow and SES Foreign Policy Institute, joins us on this broadcast. Raymond Vickery, Senior Associate at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, also with me. Let me start by asking Raymond Vickery, how do you see this particular visit of the Prime Minister, the Indian Prime Minister, coming to the fore just 1 year ahead of elections in both the countries? It is his first official state visit in the 9 years that he's been the Prime Minister.
Well, thanks for having me. I think this is a very important time in U.S.-India relations. I don't think the United States could do any more to show how much it values India, how much it values Prime Minister Modi than the next few days will show. We're literally rolling out the red carpet with the White House reception, with a joint session address to Congress, with meetings with CEOs, and deep discussions about the need for building peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific area. So I think that this is very important, but it comes on top of a continuous strengthening of the U.S.-India relation, which has been going on really since the 1990s, and it's been basically an upward trajectory, particularly with the U.S.-India civil nuclear deal, and this will be a further step in that upward trend.
Absolutely. It's onwards and upwards as far as those two countries goes. And Mr. Joseph, I'd like to get you in as well. Ties between the United States and India have only bettered as far as multiple facets have concerned, especially since the formation of the Quad is concerned. A common enemy in China that has been found in the Indo-Pacific region. The fact that this region was called Indo-Pacific is something that seems to have brought several countries, at least as far as the Quad countries, on one page.
Correct. I think that this is largely driven by geopolitics, and there's an element here of domestic U.S. politics. We shouldn't forget about that, with a growing and politically quite significant Indian-American population. So for Joe Biden, this is about geopolitics and also domestic politics, both. And it's interesting, you're absolutely right. You mentioned China. This visit of this state visit, only the third leader, Prime Minister Modi is only the third leader to have that honor at the White House, a state visit under President Biden, comes right after Secretary Blinken has met Xi Jinping in China, in Beijing. And that is crucial here. That's the pivot point in the geopolitical element of this visit. That's what makes India such a crucial partner of the United States. And this, the timing is for the United States. It's an ideal timing because now there's a much fresher understanding of the relationship going forward with China, and that can be presented in great detail directly with Prime Minister Modi to agree on how the two countries will approach the threat from China. Please.
Absolutely. The threat from China is something that is going to be on the minds of the two leaders when they sit down for that bilateral. Also something that observers are keenly watching out for. But I want to get in the interesting aspect of what we've been seeing in the recent few days in the lead up to Prime Minister Modi's visit. And I want to get in Raymond Vickery on that. You've been part of the administration in the past yourself. So I want to ask you this, the kind of reactions, the outspoken comments that we've seen from several congressmen. Is this something you've seen in the past, or is this the first time we're seeing such kind of enthusiastic comments with much clarity that are coming out?
No, I think that this has been one of the few areas in which there is actual agreement between Republicans and Democrats. And that has stretched all the way back to the Clinton administration when I was in government, and has continued through Republican as well as Democratic administrations. On the Hill, this reflection of bipartisanship has only grown. I'm involved in something called the U.S.-India partnership in the Congress, and the largest caucuses in both the Senate and the House are U.S.-India caucuses. So the point about U.S. domestic politics is very well taken. Indian Americans are among the most valued citizens of the United States, have done very well, not only economically, but increasingly politically. There are 5 members of the House who are of Indian origin, and across the board, Indian Americans have made their impact on the Congress. So I think that this is part of a continued upward trend, and I believe the joint session of Congress addressed by Prime Minister Modi will show that this is continuing.
Absolutely. And I want to address the elephant in the room, so to say, Edward Joseph, and that would be Russia. That's something that the two countries have differing opinions on. Where do you think that's going to lead? Is that something that is going to come up or is expected to come up in the next 48 hours when the Indian Prime Minister is in the United States?
There's no question about it. And that's where defense cooperation figures so prominently. As India and the United States sign agreements to advance defense cooperation, that is aimed also at pulling India away from Russia, because it's really a question of mutual interest here. India is stuck in a inertia, a sort of a Cold War inertia attachment to a Russia that is rapidly declining and losing any type of significance or even credibility, especially in the defense realm, when we see the incompetent performance of the Russian army on the battlefield, and the fact that with the sanctions and the devastation of the Russian economy under the catastrophic leadership of Vladimir Putin, Russia will be behind in the arms industry. It will not be able to compete with technology from the United States.
Sure.
So this will definitely come up. It will be conveyed to Prime Minister Modi in very clear terms that, look, this is in India's strategic interest to move away from this catastrophic leader, Vladimir Putin, to move away from Russia and to join with the United States, both in countering and isolating Putin and in countering China. That is going to be the strategic message that President Biden conveys at this very important summit. Please.
Sure. And Raymond Vickery, we've seen that kind of nudge coming in from the United States as far as Russia goes over the course of the entire 15-month-long war that we've seen. But India has made it clear that our interests are going to be paramount to us. So we'll try and make that balancing act as far as all of our allies go. And Russia is an ally. That is something that India has always maintained over the course of the last 15 months. Do you think, given that stand, it's something that perhaps wouldn't even be a wrinkle between the ties between India and United States?
Well, it's definitely of concern because the United States and India are founded on certain principles having to do with democracy, having to do with respect for international law, having to do with due process and building peace. This is not the approach of Russia under Putin. His view is you got to reestablish the Russian Empire. You've got to take over Ukraine. He's got his eye on Moldova. He's got his eye on Georgia. And this is of concern, I believe, to India as well as the U.S. Certainly, India makes its own decisions, and it goes forward as it sees its interests. But there will be discussions about what the mutual interest is between the United States and India in regard to the international rule of law, not just with China, but with Russia as well. I think that you can say that there's going to be progress made on the initiative for critical and emerging technologies between the U.S. And India. And that's designed really to make India less dependent upon Russia. As has been said by Mr. Joseph, the fact is that reliance on Russia has historic roots in regard to defense equipment. But going forward, that is the over-reliance on Russia is certainly not in the interest of India. And so this will be a matter of discussion. The question really is, to me, whether India is going to see its interest as broader than just the defense of its borders against China. Will it see its interest, and I believe it's been made clear by Prime Minister Modi that it will, when he has said to Putin, this is not a time for war, this is a time for peace and negotiation. Whether or not India will be willing to act on those across the board. And I believe there's a growing appetite, and you can tell me from the Indian perspective, for that international role. India is a great power now, but it needs to act like one. The United States is treating India as a great power. And India is moving more and more, it seems to me, to see its interests not just in defense of its borders, but in the wider scope of building peace and prosperity throughout the world. And I think this will be a major focus of discussions between the Prime Minister and the President.
And like you mentioned, India is emerging as the leader. It is emerging as the first among equals, if I may say so, and which is why it's going to be extremely crucial, the kind of negotiations, the kind of dialogue we see between the two leaders when they sit down for that bilateral. But this visit of the Prime Minister to the United States is definitely high on symbolism. The optics of it is also something that we must look at. But I have to leave it at that. I thank you both gentlemen, Edward Joseph and Raymond Vickery, for joining us here on this broadcast with your perspective. You are going